I begin this video with some good news. These are the last two moods of Koine Greek to be introduced. Once you know the imperative mood and the optative mood, you know all of the moods that are used in Koine Greek of the New Testament. So the purpose of this video is going to be to introduce these two moods, primarily the imperative, and this is why the optative is in parentheses here, because we're going to spend most of our time in the imperative, and we're really only going to introduce one form of the optative because the optative is such a rare mood in Koine Greek of the New Testament. It appears frequently in only one phrase, that is me genoita, which is when Paul says, may it never be. And sometimes you'll hear people preach this as a very strong way of saying no. Some people will translate it something like hell no. But that's really the only form that you're regularly going to see of the optative in Koine Greek, is Paul's use of me genoita, and we'll see that in just a little bit here. So in this video, what we're going to do is we're going to start with a review and preview quiz of the different moods, and this will be to sort of shore up our knowledge of the moods that we've already talked about in this class, get you to pull some of that information out of your brain so it's more likely to stick in there in the future, as well as so that quiz will also serve the purpose of previewing the imperative and the optative, so that as you pull the things you already know out of your brain, you're going to make some predictions about the imperative and the optative, and hopefully that will help you remember those a little bit better as well. So after we do that review and preview quiz, we're going to do I'm going to give you a bit of review of the different Greek moods, and then we're going to get to the imperative mood in particular, and we'll introduce the forms and the functions of the Greek imperative, and then you'll get some practice identifying Greek imperatives in sentences at the end of the video, and I'll sort of walk you through what's going on with those imperatives. So let's go ahead and get started on your whiteboards with a review and preview quiz. And so what this one is, you'll notice it's a little bit longer here. We have 12 questions over on the left-hand side, and each one of these refers to or is a characteristic of one of the different Greek moods. And I should note quickly that the participle is not technically a mood. That's why we don't have mood here. But as to parsing, we parse it in the mood place there. So with respect to our moods, each one of these is going to refer to one of these over here. So you'll notice there's 12 of these. So some of these are, of course, going to be repeated. So what I have over here in this review and preview quiz is not only the characteristics of the different moods, but you'll see also different forms. So determining what form these are. And so on some of these, as I mentioned on that first slide, some of this is preview material you may not have seen yet, and that's okay. If you don't know the answer, or if you are completely clueless on it, that's totally fine. You should be in some respects, but you should make a guess. Remember, making guesses about things and then having those guesses corrected always helps us learn things in the long term. So go ahead and pause, write numbers 1 through 12 on your whiteboard, and answer which mood each of the 12 is associated with, and I'm going to do the same. All right, here are our answers. As always, let's go in for the high five for the vast amount of work you did here with 12 different questions. So let's go in for it. 1, 2, 3. Boom, high five. The 3 that you might have had to make guesses on would have been number 2, number 11, and number 12, which have to do with material that we're going to introduce in this video. So as to number 1, the mood that indicates contingency, possibility, or unreality, that is to say, the action is future oriented and it's sort of unknown whether or not it is going to happen, is the subjunctive mood. Lueto is an imperative, so this is the third person singular, present active imperative. The mood that uses an augment for the past tense, namely for the aorist tense and the imperfect tense, is the indicative. Remember, all of the other moods are not going to use an augment to indicate the aorist or the imperfect. The augment only occurs in the indicative. So when you see an augment, you know that you are in the indicative mood. Lucai is an infinitive, an aorist active infinitive. The lengthened connecting vowel is the key to identification for the subjunctive mood. So when you see an omega or an eta connecting vowel, it's not always going to be a subjunctive. That connecting vowel sometimes appears in, for example, contract verbs. You'll see it there as well. But when you do see a lengthened connecting vowel, the subjunctive is one of the places, and perhaps even the main place that your mind ought to go. Luontos is a participle. This is a present active participle, genitive masculine singular, using that third declension os ending of the genitive masculine singular. Remember, sos, ia, esoncios, os. So it's the second one down there, genitive masculine singular. As a verbal noun, the infinitive can be either the subject or the object in a clause. So remember, the infinitive can serve a noun function as the subject or the object of another verb in the sentence. Then this one is also the infinitive, number 8 here, the pure idea of the verb that doesn't have person or number. So when we're parsing the infinitive, we don't give person or number because the infinitive is not constrained by person or number, but it's the infinite unconstrained idea of the verb, to loose, referring to the whole idea of loosing, not limited by who is doing it. Number 9 here, the participle can function either adverbially or adjectively. So when it's functioning adverbially, it's telling us the circumstances under which the main verb in the sentence happens. When it's functioning adjectively, it either modifies a noun or functions as a noun itself. When it's functioning as a noun, that is which kind of use? That's right, substantival use. And then over here, number 10, lusontai is the subjunctive. Our lengthened connecting vowel here with the omega is our clue to the subjunctive. And then the two that we're going to introduce in this video, the mood that expresses commands, entreaties, and prohibitions is going to be the imperative mood. And so of these three, commands, entreaties, and prohibitions, really think about the imperative as the mood of command. That's when how you're going to see it used most often. And then lastly, the mood that expresses a wish. And as I said on that last slide, the most common one is me genoita, is the optative mood. So this is just about all we're going to see about the optative mood in this video here. Not much more on the optative, besides the fact that this form right here, genoita, is an optative form from genomai, the to be or to become verb. All right, so what we're going to do is a brief overview or review of moods since we are at the point in the semester where we have all the moods out on the table. So this is our very, very basic flyover review of moods, and this is sort of how you should, in bullet point format, think of each of the different moods. So the indicative mood, which we spent most of the first half of the semester in, is the mood of reality. The action is viewed as actually happening either in past time or in present time, or will happen in future time. The speaker or author thinks of the action as actually happening when it comes to the indicative mood. When it comes to participles, we're talking about verbal adjectives. They have functions both of verbs and forms both of verbs, namely tense and voice, and also functions of adjectives in the form of case, gender, and number. Participles can function in two ways. What are those two ways? That's right, adverbially and adjectivally. The infinitive is an infinite verbal noun. That is to say, it's not constrained by what? That's right, not constrained by person or number, but refers to the pure idea of the verb. The subjunctive is our mood of possibility or probability, characterized by a lengthened connecting vowel. So it's unknown whether the action will happen. The imperative is our mood of command, entreaty, or prohibition. This is the one we're going to be spending most of our time with here in this video. And the rare optative mood, or rare as far as the Greek of the New Testament goes, is the mood of wish, will, or volition. So one more slide, a little bit more in depth on the different moods here, giving us English examples. So with the indicative, we're thinking about the mood of reality. The action is stated as fact, as actually happening. So Aaron Rodgers throws the football. Aaron Rodgers actually does this. It's viewed as real action that happens. The participle is a verbal adjective that can function adverbially or adjectively. The adverbial participle is going to tell us the circumstance under which the main verb happens. So our main verb in this English example is plays. Aaron Rodgers as the subject of it. And then Aaron Rodgers plays for the Packers. We're given more information about that through this phrase over here, throwing the ball well. So Greek would have this as an adverbial participle. An adjectival participle is going to modify a noun or function as the noun itself in the substantival usage. So the one who throws the ball, this in Greek would be a participle with the definite article before it in the nominative. So the one who throws the ball for the Packers is Aaron Rodgers. So you can think of this as the subject of our verb. Is the verb, and then over here Aaron Rodgers is the predicate. So here this would be again a participle in the nominative case that is functioning as the noun itself. Let's remove this stuff so we can see. We have the infinitive being the infinite idea of the verb not constrained by time. So to throw is referring to the whole or the pure idea of throwing. To throw the football is Aaron Rodgers' job. And notice here how to throw, so this is our infinitive, and our infinitive takes an object. In this case, the object is the football. And if you will, remind me what the infinitive takes its object in, or what case the object of the infinitive is in Greek. So your options are nominative, genitive, dative, or accusative. That's right, the accusative. And how about the subject of the infinitive? When the infinitive has a subject, what is that subject? Is it nominative, genitive, dative, or accusative? Again, nailed it. The accusative once again. So unlike indicative verbs, infinitives are normally going to take their subject in the accusative case. So the accusative functions as both the subject and the object of the infinitive. And remember that handy rule, if you have both associated with an infinitive verb in a Greek sentence, the one that comes first is normally going to be the subject. So back to our sentence, to throw the football. To throw takes the object football, but this whole phrase here, this whole infinitival phrase is the subject of the is verb right here. So to throw the football is the subject of this to be verb here, right here. Let's take this stuff away again so we can see a little bit more. Our subjunctive mood, action is possible or probable, but not yet completed. So it may or may not happen. Aaron Rodgers plays for the Packers in order that, notice that we have a purpose clause here, one of the very common uses of the subjunctive in Koine Greek, in order that he might throw the football. So the action is probable. Aaron Rodgers probably will throw the football, but it's not viewed as actually happening as it is up here. The imperative is a command. Throw the football, Aaron Rodgers, as if I'm watching the Packers on TV and Aaron Rodgers is about to be sacked and I'm commanding him through the digital universe of NBC to throw the football. And then lastly, the optative, our most rare mood in the Greek New Testament, is a wish. The action is hoped for. So I may have the wish that Aaron Rodgers always play or always throw the football for the Packers. So let Aaron Rodgers throw the football for the Packers forever, or let Aaron Rodgers play for my team instead of Packers. Those wishes in Greek would be expressed by the optative mood. All right, so that's our review of moods, and now we're going to sort of hone in, turn our attention to what the main subject of this video is, the imperative. So as to our basics for the imperative, as we've said a couple times now, and as you've pulled out of your own brain, the imperative is the mood of command, entreaty, or prohibition. This being the case because it's commanding an action of someone else, there is no first person form of the imperative. I don't really command myself unless I speak to myself in the third person. Dr. Elder, finish up this lecture, as if I was saying that to myself. I wouldn't say I finish up this lecture in the form of command. So because this is the case, because we have the imperative as the mood of command, entreaty, or prohibition, there just simply aren't first person forms because they wouldn't really make sense. We're only going to have second and third person forms of the imperative. And as is the case with all non-indicative moods, the imperative is going to be negated with may, not oo. Remember, oo is what is used to negate the no or not word for indicative verbs. The participles, infinitives, imperatives, optatives are all going to be negated with may. So two main functions. So this is slightly different from what Black is going to say in the grammar. And basically it's repeating this information up here. But I put the command and entreaty into one category. So I think it's a little bit easier to remember if we just think of the imperative as commanding and prohibiting action. Sometimes you'll see the entreaty use of the imperative translated as please. This is especially the case when an imperative is addressed towards God in the New Testament, that we want to sort of soften that in our translation by not telling what God to do. So translators will put a please in there. But it still has, an entreaty still has a sense of command in it. So those are our two main functions. And then as to the tenses of the imperative, we're going to normally see the imperative in the present and the aorist tenses. There are also perfect tense imperatives, but they are much more rare. So we're just going to be taking a look at the present and aorist tenses. And as is also the case in non-indicative forms, the tenses in the imperative don't refer to time when the action happens. They refer to the kind of action. So a present tense imperative is going to be concerned with ongoing, frequent, or repeated action. So as I've done so many times before, you can think of this as the ongoing nature, or action that happens again and again and again. So if I wanted to tell Aaron Rodgers to keep throwing the ball, not to retire, to keep playing for the Packers, in Greek it would be ballet, two lambdas there. So we have the present tense, not the aorist tense. Ballet ton ballon, Aaron Rodgers. Throw the ball or keep throwing the ball, Aaron Rodgers. The aorist tense is not going to be ongoing action, but how have we been depicting this? Yes, of course, you know this so well by now, as a single point. The action is commanded as a whole, and usually Koine Greek is going to use the aorist tense to give a specific command at a specific point in time. So say I'm, sitting on my couch watching the Packers beat the Bears, and Aaron Rodgers is again about to get sacked, and I say, throw the ball, Aaron Rodgers. If I were to do this in Greek, I would use the aorist tense rather than the present tense because I'm commanding it at a specific point in time. I'm thinking about the action as a whole. I want Aaron Rodgers to do that whole action right away. It's not a continuous or ongoing action that's going to happen repeatedly. It's happening at that specific point in time. So the aorist, notice here the ballet with a single lambda, because this is what, a first aorist or a second aorist? That's right, second aorist. The stem has changed. So our aorist is going to command either a specific action or the simple action sort of viewed as a whole. So as to our formation of the imperative, what I have given you here, and I also give you this as a cheat sheet on Moodle for the week, is the basic forms of the imperative, or the basic endings of the imperative. And to me, this is much more manageable than if you look into Black's grammar. He's just going to give you all of the different paradigms for the different tense and voices of the imperative without calling attention to the sort of shared endings between those paradigms. So for me, this is a lot handier and it feels a lot less overwhelming than having all of the paradigms laid out. We're going to get some more paradigms laid out in just a second here, but these are the basic endings you're going to see. And notice that our second person singular forms vary, so that these are going to be the ones where you see the most difference, and these are going to be our most common forms: the second person singular in the active and the aorist passive, so all active forms of all tenses, and specifically the aorist tense passive mood. You're going to see an epsilon or an on ending. And then for all tenses of the middle passive, except for the aorist passive, we're going to normally have an u, a t, or a iota. And then all of these ones are going to be quite regular, as I say here in the second bullet point. And notice how when we come over to the middle passive, the sigma theta replaces the tau here. So the way I think of this is that the sigma gets added on in the middle passive, and this causes the tau to go from the t to the th sound. So notice how all of these look similar to one another, except for the change, the addition of the sigma and the changing of the tau to the theta. And then just a couple other notes from right over here. The first aorist active and middle morpheme is going to be saw. So we've seen this morpheme in the indicative mood. We've seen it in the infinitive. It's going to continue, and we've seen it in the participles. It's going to be continued to be used for the imperative as well, in both the active and the middle. And then the first aorist passive morpheme is going to be our theta eta, so that the theta eta, as it has also been in the other moods, is going to be our clue not only to the passive, but specifically to the aorist. And then no morpheme is going to be used for present active or middle forms. That with those, you're just going to have the ending added on without anything else sort of applied there to form it. So this is how it looks when we sort of move these endings over to our different paradigms. And you'll notice how I've grouped these paradigms. These are our present imperatives right here, and the active and the middle or passive. Notice the middle and passive share forms. So the only way to know whether it's middle or passive, as always, in the present tense is going to be context. And notice how we're just using the endings here. Just what we have in red is our endings from over here, just applied over into the present tense. This is also true with most of the forms of the second aorist. And notice how, once again, as is so often the case in the other moods, the present active indicative looks a whole lot like the second aorist active indicative. The same endings are used, but the difference is the changed root. So this from lambano, the lambda of the root has been lost. And if we were to do this with ballo, of course, up here we'd have ballet with 2 lambdas, and down here we'd have ballet with a single lambda. And then over here we have the eta, and I recognize that this blue on black is maybe not as clear on your screen as it is on my screen, but that eta is assigned to the passive, like the theta eta is down here. But remember, in the second aorist, we don't get the full theta eta, we just get the eta. And then with our first aorist imperatives, we have a sigma alpha throughout in the aorist, or in the active in the middle, except for in the second person singular. The second person singular is sort of the odd form that just has a sigma, and the sigma, and then the on ending from right up here. So and then in our passive, first aorist passive, we have the theta eta with the endings added on there. So that's just to sort of show you how these different forms are grouped, and then how they're sort of put back in to the paradigm. So for me, using this is much easier for recognition than is the full paradigms. And looking at this is a bit more overwhelming to me than is this. So how we're gonna close out here is we're gonna do 2 practice sentences together. I'm gonna ask you first to pause and take a look at this sentence in Greek with its English translation. I want you to both identify and parse any imperatives on your whiteboard. So write down what the imperatives are in the sentence and parse them using either the cheat sheet that I have given you or looking to Black's Grammar. So use whatever materials you need to here to do this bit. I'm not asking you and don't expect you to do it just out of your mind at this point, but being able to look back and identifying which verb is or which word is an imperative and being able to parse it. And then what kind of action does the tense assume? So thinking back to the difference between the present imperative and the aorist imperative, what kind of command or prohibition is being made based on the tense? So go ahead and pause the lecture here. Go ahead and do these questions and we'll come back together and I'll give you my take on it. All right, so we only have one imperative in this sentence. You might have sort of been looking out for other ones, but there's only one. It's just the first word in our sentence here, poiesate. So this is going to be an aorist active imperative, second person plural from poieo. And you will notice, and we haven't talked about this previously in the video, but you'll notice this looks exactly like the aorist active indicative second person plural form from poieo. That is often the case in the second person, and particularly the second person plural, that the indicative form and the imperative form is identical to one another, and you have to decide based on the context of the sentence whether it's a command or whether it's a statement of fact. So here our options could be you all made the fruit of righteousness, because it is written, from their fruits you will know them. But we have hence one from the translation of the sentence itself, that this is an imperative, but it also sort of makes better sense in the context of the sentence, so that we have this being the command, make the fruit of righteousness. And as to the kind of action that it assumes, as an aorist tense imperative, it assumes simple action. So the command isn't sort of this ongoing, continue to make the fruit of righteousness, though that might also be implied, but it's more of a, right now, make the fruit of righteousness right now. This is really important for you to do, or start making the fruit of righteousness. And then I'm going to make a couple other comments about the sentence here. So notice that this is an independent clause. It can stand on its own. This could be a sentence, make the fruit of righteousness. We wouldn't need the rest of it, but we do have more. Of course, we have an indicative verb here, the aorist passive indicative, third person singular, ge graptai. It has been written. And then this is the thing that's been written. From their fruits, so from apa to auton, we have a prepositional phrase. Notice that we have this tone carpon in the genitive, because why? Yep, because it is the object, the direct object of the preposition apa. And then this genitive, auton, shows possession. It shows whose fruits, namely their fruits. And then we have a future middle indicative from ginomai, gnosko. You all will know them. Autus is our accusative object here. All right, let's do one more example. In this one, I promise we actually do have more imperatives. In fact, we have 3 of them. So go ahead and find the 3 imperatives, parse each one of them, and then indicate what kind of action each one assumes. All right, so I've crowded up our screen a little bit here with parsing information, and I recognize that kairete is not a vocabulary word you have had before. You from the English down here, you may have gotten it and been able to come to the answers for these. But I recognize that that's not a vocabulary word that you've had before. And there's some intention to that I want you to be able to sort of recognize things even if you have not had them before. So our three different imperatives are going to be erotesate, pistuesate, and kairete. So a couple of different comments on each one of these here. Notice that because erotao is a contract verb, we have an alpha contract verb, that we get a lengthening here when the sigma is added for the aorist morpheme, the first aorist morpheme here, that we get that lengthening. So this sigma right here is our sign to the first aorist, and then we have the lengthening of the eta. So our parsing information is an aorist active imperative, second person plural from erotao, which means I ask. So do not ask. This is a prohibition here. Remember, one of our main uses, the two main uses of the imperative is one of them is going to be prohibition, the other is going to be command or entreaty. So don't ask, commanding you not to do a thing. Don't ask how the dead are able. So the dead, hoi nekroi, is the subject of our verb dunatai here. And dunatai needs something to complete it. And it gets that with what? What is this thing right here? That's right, it's a complementary infinitive, to be raised. So in the passive voice here. So don't ask how the dead are able to be raised. Believe, and as we have translated here, go on rejoicing in te duname tu theou, in the power of God. So all of this over here, a prepositional phrase. Te duname in the dative case because it's following the preposition in, which takes its direct object. In the dative case, excuse me, and then the accusative, the genitive case, I have accusative in my mind for some reason. The genitive case, tu theou, following, saying whose power it is, namely the power of God. So as to our kind of action, with these two, we have aorist imperatives. So it's a forbidding of an action that's sort of happening. So don't ask this, and then believe or start believing. Take that action, and then kairete as a present imperative is going to have a more ongoing nature to it. So, come to belief, start believing, and go on rejoicing. So sort of perhaps as a result of the start of belief, the continuous action of rejoicing is indicated by the present tense here.